Good evening, everybody. Before the chairman formally opens the meeting, a couple of housekeeping points. Firstly, I can confirm for the second year running we have a socially distanced quorum, so thank you so much for attending and providing us with that quorum. We also have lots of people watching on Zoom, on YouTube, on Facebook, so there's lots of people out there as well as in here. Those attending online will be able to participate fully by asking questions on the chat function. So when we get to the Q&A session, people will be able to get involved outside of this room on the chat function. But we're not going to turn the chat function on until we get close to that time, just to avoid any Zoom hiccups. So that's all the housekeeping. Please welcome our chairman, Richard Thompson.
Thank you. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Sadly, our second socially distanced AGM. I was sincerely hoping after last year it may have been our first. I think we've gone on. Trust the clicker with Richard Gould. I was hoping this might not be socially distanced, but I think it's a big, big bonus to be the first individuals to be using the new 175 suite in One Oval Square. So if you've been here 2 hours ago, you might have had wet paint, or we may have given you a broom and a bucket to deal with the snagging list, which is getting ever longer. But it's a phenomenal facility, and it's great that you're here to experience it for the very first time. And certainly during the Middlesex game as well, you'll be able to, weather permitting, enjoy more of the facilities. So, before I start the meeting formally, I'd like to introduce the top table. We have Richard Gould, our Chief Executive, Martin Eden, our Honorary Treasurer, Andrew Lane, our Finance Director, Alex Stewart, our Director of Cricket, Vikram Solanki, our Head Coach, and Ebony Rainford-Brent, our Director of Women's Cricket. And may I also welcome on Zoom our solicitors from Wedlake Bell, Cam Lally, Andy Hollis, our auditors from Deloitte, and Callum Doyle, our Company Secretary. Now, sadly, over the last 12 months, we have lost a number of friends and family. I'd be surprised if anyone in this room hasn't been directly or indirectly affected by the tragedy that's unfolded. And as is normal, we will pay tribute to those members of the Surrey family that we've lost in the last 12 months. And unfortunately, this year, it's probably one of the longest lists that I'm having to read out. So if you can bear with me, I would like us to remember and give special mention to members of our Surrey family that have been lost in the last 12 months. To Robbie Beeston, to Joe Benjamin, to Bill Clutterbuck, to Robert Clark, to John Edridge, to David Greener, Nicholas Hall, Paul Hare, Roger Harris, Robert Hutchis, Robin Jackman, Jack Miller, James Munro, Sam Ogle, Tony Pannell, David Rear, Dr. Sarah Scott Barrett, David Seaward, Michael Spittles, David Stewart, Peter Sturgis, Robin Ware, Murray Watts, and Graham Whittle. Now, every one of those individuals we will miss. There were 4 individuals that I would like to mention specifically that made a phenomenal impact in a different way to this club. And rather than words, I will leave it to pictures to pay tribute.
And finally, what does this place still mean to you? everything.
I would like those people in the room to stand for a moment's reflection as we take some time to remember. Thank you. So before we commence our meeting properly, I'd like to formally introduce our cricket management team, starting with Alex Stewart. He will introduce Ebony, Vikram and Rory, each to say a few words for the season ahead, or the season that started. Stewie, thank you.
Thanks, Chairman. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, if I could introduce our head coach, Vikram Solanki. He took over in the middle of last year when we said goodbye to Michael Di Venuto. Because of the issues with COVID, Vikram stood in last year and straight away showed his true colours. What a good leader he is, the way he cares about people, his qualities as a coach, his qualities as a person, and I think the team and the squad are benefiting with him as head coach. So I've asked Vikram to come up in a minute. We have our captain, Rory Burns. I think we can congratulate him as well. He's just been picked in the squad announced today to take on New Zealand in a 2 Test match series. So Rory, congratulations on that selection. And of course, Ebony Rainford-Brent, our Director of Women's Cricket, who does a wonderful job in the way she promotes the women's game, both for Surrey. She's also done a magnificent job with the ACE programme, which I'm sure she will speak about, and she's just going from strength to strength. So again, we're very, very lucky to have Ebony in our midst. So well done, Ebony, on what you've done so far and what you're going to be doing in the future. But if I could now call upon Vikram just to come up and look a little bit at last year and just a little bit looking forward before then the captain, and then leave the very best to last. Ebony will follow the captain. Thank you.
Evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. Like everybody, I'm sure you're pleased to be at the Oval. We're looking forward to you sort of being around for the rest of the summer. Looking forward to having crowds back. We saw in football actually what crowds and what supporters of the game mean to players and clubs alike, and certainly our members are very valuable to us. Just briefly, on reflection of last year, I think a mixed season is the best way to describe it. Our sort of difficulties in the Bob Willis Trophy were well documented. There were a number of reasons for it, in and around everything that everybody suffered as far as COVID is concerned, but also the sort of availability of our players. All of that said, I was confident, and we were all confident as a coaching group and as a team, that we should have given a better account of ourselves with the teams that we put out. So that was a slightly disappointing sort of campaign for us. And in contrast, the T20 Blast campaign was entirely different. To put a string of 9 wins together in any format is exceptional. To do it with a young group of players where some of the emerging players sort of stood up and made winning contributions was exceptional. So, you know, the likes of Will Jackson and Dan Moriarty to play the part they did in that campaign was brilliant. That said, we fell at the final hurdle, which was disappointing, but it wasn't for lack of trying, and we continued to work hard on all aspects of our game, all formats. A brief sort of overview of this year so far. We've played well in parts and perhaps not so well in other parts. And so if you take the contrast between our performances against Gloucester, we let ourselves down there and we're on the wrong side of that result. And then having lost to Middlesex as well, it took a sort of magnificent effort to put together effectively the best possible game you could against Hampshire. We played very well against Hampshire, individual contributions you'd have read about. But we're benefiting from having our England boys around, having the captain around, and we wish them well when they go on to play in this test series. We will continue to sort of work as hard as we possibly can to try and secure the best position we can for the remainder of this championship block, and then build towards our T20 campaign, which we're all excited about, not least for the fact that we're looking forward to having our crowds back. I hope you continue to enjoy the summer, and we really look forward to having you back. Thank you.
Obviously, following Victor's no mean task, so you know that's quite a difficult one. But look, to be standing here in front of you in this environment, to have people in the room, from a player's perspective, is a great thing. And you know, we've missed you over the last 18 months or so, and we've missed that support from the stands out in the middle. But like we say, we've had some good times on the pitch and some indifferent times. But one thing that it has given us over this last period, particularly the Bob Willis Trophy last year, I thought, was the chance to get some games in some of our younger lads, to see their progression, to see their development, and keep pushing them forward, as well as this year bringing back our England contingent. I think 9 of us were away in bubbles at various different points last year, and it's great to have that experience back around the group and sharing what we can share. But like we say, the games have come thick and fast so far this summer. Thursday starts week on week has been a challenge, but it's one that I think we're starting to get to cope with. Like we say, we probably started a little bit slow at Gloucester, but I think our performances have actually improved throughout that period of time, which is really good to see. The weather's obviously stifled that little bit of momentum we got with that Hampshire win, but we look to push on. And lastly, we look forward to welcoming you back here against Middlesex. I know it will give the boys a big lift, and we can't wait to get going. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I've gone for the notes option. These guys are showing me up today. First of all, great to see you all in the room. How weird has it been over the last year? So it's an absolute joy to see all your faces and connect again. Just going to touch on 2 things today, the women's game and then obviously the ACE programme as well, which is something that's evolved through the club but actually taken shape on its own. Let's start with the women's, and I actually, because it's been such a long time, wanted to start with the coronavirus hitting last year, and for most of women's sport it was sidelined, and I haven't seen you all since then, but one thing that really stood out for me was the London Cup. Before any cricket was played, even by the guys, Richard Gould, I know that you were instrumental in this, wanted the women's game to be on. And, I was reading all in the main media about how women's sport was at the back of the queue, and actually this club had it at the front. London Cup, under lights, and put at the forefront. So that, to me, summed up how far this club has come when it comes to women's cricket. And I think it's really testament to both Richard and Richard, the support that they've made happen. So the big picture, a lot is going on in the women's game. You would have heard of the restructure. So there's now 2 new elements that come into play. The South East Stars, which is the regional performance hub, and of course the Oval Invincibles on the top. The South East Stars, we are the host, a very strong club, and I think we've been proud to take on leadership with Richard Bedbrook, who has led brilliantly. He's gone on from taking on the Surrey women, the Surrey Stars, to now managing that region really well. 5 professional contracts, I think that's the real standout of that. 5 professional contracts have been added, and pleased to say plenty of the Surrey players were at the forefront. So Bryony Smith, who many of you have seen come through the club as an under 9 all the way through, really proud to see her in that list. Ailish Cranstone as well, and Sophia Dunkley, who's from Middlesex originally but has come through into Surrey and Surrey Stars and taken a lead in one of those contracts. So really exciting for the club to lead on that. Also as well, I think a really good appointment in Johan Myberg, who's taken on the head coach there. What was important, though, with all these moving parts is that Surrey women still maintained its presence. And, you know, I have to be honest, it's been a lot of restructuring going on. But what has happened, and I think this is again testament to the club, is leadership in this space. Although the Surrey Women's Game maintains an amateur game, more elements have been put in place. So you'll see the London Cup continues, and the London Championship has been added to the fixture on top of the ECB T20. So there's now a full fixture programme. So within that, we've joined Middlesex, Essex, Sussex, and Essex to create a nice South strong league. And I think what that means for us is not only the club, again, putting it forefront, but we are making sure that the future means that we're going to most probably be driving performance for a long time. So the summer's kicked off already. The women have been in T20, started off with a couple of losses, but actually bounced back really strong. And there's a lot of cricket to come with, like we say, the London Championship and the London Cup, which we won last year for the first time after creating it. And I'm hoping our fixture at Radler away this year continues the same. And I think it's worth mentioning our players are doing strong. Nat Siver continues to dominate on the international circuit. Bryony Smith does us proud, just been named again in England A, and think her career will fly. But also keep an eye out for a youngster called Alice Capsey. She's been doing brilliantly. And I think if you don't know her name, just keep an eye out. Someone that I think could do Surrey proud. And then I'll just touch on the ACE programme. Wow, I would say it was the Surrey ACE programme, and it's now potentially going to be a national programme. After another conversation with a leader over here, we realised there was a huge problem in our game, 75% decline in the black community. And we sit in the hub of an environment where we knew we could do something. And again, I think this is where good leadership comes in. 2 quick conversations and let's get moving, let's do something. So we announced it last year, and the success has been incredible. Not only did we hand out 25 scholarships, 4 of those players throughout now have had opportunities to move in and train with Surrey under-18s, which is exciting. One youngster called Dylan just got called up to join and train, and another one worth keeping an eye on. So not only have we provided new opportunity, I think it's led the conversation about what our game can do to increase diverse groups within. So we've expanded to Birmingham, which is great. It sounds like we're going to be moving into Bristol, which might help that we've got a friend who's going to be in that region quite soon. So if ACE is going down there, we're good. We've become an independent charity with £500,000 investment and potentially more along that line to be coming quite soon. And actually as well, really pleased that Sir Captain Tom Moore's legacy fundraiser recently we were appointed that, and so we'll be supported by that. So it's taken a life on its own, and I think, again, the one thing I just want to say about, you know, my joy of being part of this club is whatever I've been involved in, you know, women's cricket, we have led the way with our appointments, with investment, with everything, and I think when it comes to ACE, we're potentially going to lead another conversation which could really help the wider game. So I've enjoyed this year so far. I think lots more to do, but hopefully you guys are happy with how things are progressing. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Ebony, for your infectious enthusiasm, to Vic, to Rory, to Stewie, to a season that's already well underway, but an awful lot of cricket still to play. So our best wishes, fortune, particularly Middlesex this week. Who knows what the weather's going to do, but good luck making sure Surrey is at the forefront of winning matches and trophies. So moving on to the main part of the AGM now, I would ask for confirmation of the minutes. So our previous AGM was on the 7th of July 2020. They've been available from the club for inspection prior to the meeting, both online and on request. I would like to have a proposer and a seconder to confirm the minutes of the 2nd of July 2020. A proposer, thank you. And a seconder, thank you very much. And a show of hands from all members to confirm the minutes were correct. Thank you. Any against? Thank you. Oh, a round of applause was that for the minutes. And now I will pass on to Richard Gould to give his full report for the season ahead and last season. To Richard.
And before I give that report, we've got a short video which hopes to summarise a lot of the work that's been going on across the club over the last 12 months.
trained hard, we've supported each other through these tough times, and now we're back playing the game we love.
And last year, over the course of 3 days, spread out across a couple of months, we delivered the first crowd trials back in the country to 4,500 people.
We established the ACE programme, we secured funding from Sport England, we launched as an independent charity and started a programme in Birmingham, and we saw our first player represent the Surrey age groups.
We've continued with the construction of the One Oval Square development, which includes 2,500 new seats, an extension to the Mickey Stewart Pavilion, the Duchy and 175 suites, and a rooftop terrace bar.
The cricket clubs have been outstanding in supporting and showing initiative all through the last summer in getting people back to play cricket. And with a lot of activity here at LSE and our cricket club down at Guildford, we've done really well in getting players back playing, both boys and girls, in our pathway.
We have had a security officer at the ground all day, every day, hosted COVID test sites, parking for NHS staff and key London services, and taken the temperature of hundreds of different people.
We've seen 9 Surrey players called into the England bubble, played in the Bob Willis Trophy, Vitality Blast and the County Championship, but only 3 days of cricket in front of our fans.
We have worked with local charities to help cook meals for staff at our local hospitals, St Thomas, Guy's, King's and St George's.
We ensured that everyone who had international tickets last year were able to swap it for this year's game at no extra cost.
We formed a new team from scratch and I became one of the first ever female professional cricketers within the domestic game.
Very sadly, we've had to lower the Surrey flag to half-mast on far too many occasions, including over Christmas, when we lost John Edridge and Robin Jackman.
But we have come together as a Surrey family to remember those we lost, to tell the stories of the good times, and when we're able to, we'll come together again to remember them in person.
We have worked with local schools to help them prepare laptops and Chromebooks for children to use back at home. We have written coding curriculums to be used back inside school. And also we have welcomed back children as soon as was possible for cricket coaching and classroom computer sessions.
We've been humbled by the incredible support we've received from our members.
Despite suffering severe financial losses over the last year, we've continued to pay our players, our staff and our suppliers. We have also met our scheduled repayments on our bank loans. We've completed the funding on number 1 Oval Square, which is a fantastic addition to our facilities, as well as a sound investment in our commercial activities. We have also managed to take the once-in-a-generation opportunity of purchasing land on our boundary with the completion of the purchase of the Oval House Theatre.
We trained at home during the first lockdown, and we were still able to help local charities and support those who were in need.
We put our training marquee up earlier than we've ever done before and had our players training outdoors on grass in February. We also ensured cricket could be played at Guildford Cricket Club and our training ground in New Malden as soon as we were allowed to.
Sadly, it's been a really difficult year. We've had to support staff through the furlough scheme and 2 major rounds of redundancies, but things are starting to get better.
In the foundation this year, we've supported every club in Surrey through the pandemic and even seen the game thrive, seeing 30 new clubs entering the league setup this year.
For the first time, Surrey women won the London Cup and some of our players represented South East Stars in the Rachel Hayhoe Flynn Trophy.
We never closed our doors and we were able to hold some permitted events, including exams, temporary offices for Lambeth Council and the International Wine Challenge.
We've taken the opportunity of an empty ground to get things cleaned, maintained and improved across the whole ground.
Runs in, tall, rangy from the ACS stand end and Pope pushes it to the onside and he'll get his 200 with that. A glorious shot.
Every ball of every Surrey home match has been covered live on our new and improved streaming service or on Sky Sports.
So during lockdown, we had the opportunity to speak to a few members, which is not always easy to get to speak to the people that support us from the stands. It was a very nice thing to do and to check in with everybody and see they were okay. Which reminds me, I made a few promises of some coaching sessions, so those people that I did, I'm all ready to go.
In 1945, we couldn't celebrate our centenary. And in 2020, we were unable to celebrate our 175th year. However, we're still here, we're still standing, and we're strong, and can't wait to get out of lockdown and welcome everybody back to the club and ground we all love so much.
You can see we've been really busy, and I'd just like to thank all of our staff who have kept going for the last 12 to 18 months with your support. You can see that we haven't closed down as a club or as a venue. We have kept going, we've stayed open, we've tried to do our jobs, we've tried to serve the community, and also we've tried to make sure that as this pandemic lifts, we're in the best place possible to see the resurgence that we want. And the biggest resurgence starts on Thursday, when over 3,000 members will be in here to watch us beat Middlesex live on Sky Sports, which is wonderful. In terms of membership numbers, this is a good chief executive slide. I think it's wonderful to see the growth that we've seen, and I think this is because of the membership. You all speak to people, you all have friends, you tell them about the club, you bring them down here. Hopefully when they arrive here they have a good time, they feel welcomed, they see that we're an inclusive organisation and we want people to join us. And I think that's what that graph says. We're the friendly club. And I think it's outstanding that we see that level of growth. And even this year, after a pandemic where nobody's been in the ground for, Charlie, 601 days is his great stat, we're still in growth. And I think that's an amazing testament both to the club, but more importantly, to our members. This is not such a good chief executive slide. It shows the drop in turnover that we've experienced with the onset of COVID, and the Chairman and Treasurer will come on to that in a little bit more detail. But you can see the dramatic effect that this has had on us as a club financially. And earlier on the video you saw Joe Law, Head of HR, explaining that we've gone through a number of rounds of redundancies, and we've had staff cuts, and we've been using the furlough scheme. We've been doing whatever we can to work this through. We've also, through that, had to fund some fairly significant projects. So my hat's off to Andrew Lane, our Finance Director, because not only were we £30-odd million down on turnover, but we have this new building, which is coming to fruition, which is a £31 million investment, and we've also bought some land across the way. So there was about a £70 million swing over the last 12 months, and it's been superbly managed by the General Committee and the Management Board and all of those that have helped, particularly the members. And I know this will be a common theme running through this evening, our thanks and gratitude towards the members for supporting us last year with regards to membership fees and keeping their money in the club wherever possible. It was an extraordinary effort by all of our members, but also, of course, to see the number of members that have renewed for this year. There are things, this is my could do better slide. So there are always elements through the year that we could do better. The membership refund, I mentioned briefly, I apologise. I know it will have landed in a fairly blunt fashion at some stages, but I'm very grateful for the patience shown by members in responding to that. We are committed as a club to repaying that value over the next year or two. So you'll have seen that in terms of direct debits, we've increased the amount of discount that people will receive. We've put money on people's cards, beer tokens, I think we've called them, Alex, haven't we? So beer tokens, so there'll be credit on your card, so you can come and grab a beer on the match day. And those are the sorts of things that we introduced last season in order to repay members for the value that they provided and contributed towards the club, and we'll continue doing that in future years until we can provide people with their money back, because it was a great help when we needed it. In terms of 1 Oval Square, this development, we are the first event in here, and as the chairman said, if you'd arrived early with a dustpan and brush, you'd have saved Zach a job, who had the hoover round. There's Zach, thank you. This project is a significant investment for the club. It will pay great dividends as we move out of the pandemic. Clearly, for the contractors working through a pandemic where their own staff during some stages were not able to travel into London, with supply chains being squeezed, in some places just completely turned off, we are a few weeks behind schedule. I hope you'll forgive that. We're about 6 weeks behind schedule, but we're aiming for practical completion on the 1st of June, with a bit of snagging thereafter. So by the time that we get to 100% crowds, and fingers crossed for the 21st of June, where we will see 100% crowds back, this thing will be finished. And the room you're sat in now is the new members' dining room, effectively. So this is a members' room that will be available for every championship match, for every 2020 match, and there is a door behind us, a double door that leads straight into the pavilion. So you'll just be able to come and go from this, your new dining room, into the pavilion. But we are a little bit late, apologies. In terms of budget, smidgen over budget, but literally only a smidgen. I haven't had a rap on the knuckles from the chairman or the treasurer. It's a £31 million budget, and we're about £400,000 or £500,000 over in terms of that. But in the overall scheme of things, we think that is a good result. The annual report and accounts, apologies in terms of some of the dates that we set ourselves slightly ambitious targets. So in terms of responding to the committee election, you will see that there was an incorrect date on there. We were playing around with the dates of the AGM as to whether it was going to be 3 or 4 weeks ago or it was going to be now, and it was all really based on when we were going to be able to unlock and allow people back in, because we wanted to have people in. So apologies for that, but we did have a good turnout in terms of the elections, and that has been able to do its job. We haven't had any Ticketmaster problems this year, largely because we haven't had any tickets on sale. But that's unfair. They've provided a sterling service over the last 10, 15 years. A few hiccups here and there, but that always happens. But we are moving on to a new system. Emily and the team are migrating us onto a new system called Secutix, which will provide all sorts of weird functionality that I don't understand, but will make it much easier for people to get in, access tickets, mobile tickets on your phone. All of that sort of stuff will be coming our way, and that will be in place for when we go on sale with our international tickets for 2022. And also our website, we will be seeking to improve that. There's a new website that's being launched fairly shortly. I am delighted to report that there were no complaints with regards to the PA last season. That was my highlight of the year. And with that, I'll hand over to the chairman.
We will have an opportunity, obviously, to say goodbye to Richard formally, but obviously that will be Richard's final report, having served 10 years. And somebody I should have introduced on the top table earlier is Charlie Hodgson. And Charlie Hodgson will be stepping up to become our interim CEO. And is obviously learning as much as he can about AGMs from Richard now for the future. So we wish Charlie for the very best of luck as interim CEO as the season begins and as we start that handover. And as I say, there will be other opportunities where we will pay tribute to Richard. So in moving forward, I think, have always started with this slide. Obviously, Martin will talk about the club's balance sheet, but this is the real club balance sheet. And some years has been better than others. I think this year is as good as it's ever been. We have 29 players in our squad, 17 developed through our own academy, which is close to a record. But what is a record is that out of that squad of 17 academy players, 9 players within the 27 are England players, which is extraordinary. We clearly paid the price for that quite heavily last year with the biosecure bubbles where players couldn't leave the bubble, and we struggled to at times almost select a side. But we have real depth within this squad now and some great young emerging players that has a backbone of Surrey throughout. It obviously creates many challenges for us. We're fortunate we're in a period at the moment where most of our England players are available, but it's clear to us with the advent of, or the primacy in which the ECB bend over backwards to accommodate the IPL and numerous other franchise tournaments around the world, where does Surrey fit into that? And it's become a real issue and something that I've picked up with ECB in terms of the player pathway, because we are not the academy for the IPL, we're the academy for Surrey County Cricket Club. And to see so many of our players do so well, and then we either lose them to the Big Bash, the IPL, obviously to England, which we don't mind doing, but we are beginning to think that we're not getting a return on our investment, and we're certainly not seeing enough of these players. So that's something that we are really looking to try and create a fairer, more equitable system, because at the moment we as a county, more than many others, strive for a Surrey backbone, where other counties find other ways of achieving success, but by achieving that success we unfortunately lose those players to other areas. So that's something that we are addressing as we speak. Richard's spoken about One Oval Square, and I won't go into too much more detail, but we're clearly very proud that we are in this room today. Behind me is the pavilion. We are going to have a David Stewart Library, which is the room in the corner here, paying tribute to David, our former treasurer, president and chairman. Those of you that were part of the Robin Jackman Memorial, we had some great stories that night, particularly from his very close friend Pat Pocock, when we learned of the nip back in. Now, why it took that long to find out that Robin at home had his own little bar called the Nip Back In. But we found out, and we thought, well, actually, we've got to find a home for the Nip Back In. So we're going to create a Nip Back In within One Oval Square to pay tribute to one of the most popular players ever to wear a Surrey cap. So the Nip Back In will also be housed here and open this year at the appropriate moment, along with the David Stewart Library that's behind me. Looking at what's happening at Lord's, Old Trafford, 10 other international venues for us to compete with, it's so important these facilities at the Oval continue to be world-class, continue to lead, which we want to do, we do not follow, and offer the facilities that we do. To the Peter May boys, that's a very big Peter May terrace now, so I think the Peter May boys might need to expand their numbers, given that they've got quite a significant terrace to fill under there. But I know they were worried about what would happen to the Peter May Terrace. Well, there is the new Peter May Terrace, and I hope you'll be very proud of it, and it will get very well used. Our ambition doesn't stop with One Oval Square. We had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to purchase some land, the old theatre, and the White House, which we've now acquired. We now own those buildings and those sites. We have planning permission to build the hotel. Clearly, with the pandemic, we've just slightly pressed the pause button on what we do. We have every ambition and every intention to build that hotel. It's just a case of when we do it and how quickly the world recovers from the pandemic. But that would make a material difference to the success of our club and our business. White House gives us tremendous opportunities to have flats for players potentially, a residential opportunity, offices. We're looking at a whole number of schemes led by Chris Diamond, who's been a huge support both for One Oval Square and the developments here. That again are very exciting, and we will be able to tell you more as we're able to. And those of you that look at the theatre now, that building is significantly more attractive than the theatre. Again, membership sacrifices and loyalty, something I say every year we don't take for granted, but when as many members didn't ask for a refund, and you're all completely entitled to ask for a refund, so there's no difference whether you did or you didn't. Many of you that would have maybe been furloughed, lost their job, got through great hardship, showed tremendous generosity in ensuring that that important £2 million retained in the club over such a tremendously challenging year. We now have twice the membership of Lancashire, of Warwickshire, of Yorkshire, the list continues. But I thought I'd mention those because they're slightly bigger than some of the others. If we're not bigger than Leicester or Gloucester, we've got a real problem. But the reality is those were the counties that, you know, within this generation, not that long ago, were significantly bigger in membership. To actually grow your membership in a pandemic when you couldn't even come to the club really does show how far we've grown. And I think this facility, if you're a member of Surrey, I've always felt you want to come each season and feel like something's improved, whether certainly the team, but also the facilities. And this, in addition to our iconic Alcott room, the long room, and now to have this members lounge with great facilities and balconies is another brilliant addition. You can walk seamlessly from the pavilion into this room, which I don't believe any other ground in the country can offer. So it's very important we continue to grow, be ambitious, set high standards, and attain to beat them. ECB, it wouldn't be an AGM if I didn't have a go at the ECB. So it's that point. Obviously, Colin Groves isn't chairman anymore, so I can't say explaining Colin's behaviour is the real acronym for ECB. But we're very welcome to see Ian Watmore, who has now taken the helm. Interesting to see what Ian does, but he's an impressive guy. We're working very closely with him as the whole game recovers from this pandemic. And this pandemic has affected test match grounds significantly more than other grounds. Worcester have announced a record profit without having a member in the ground, where test match grounds are announcing record losses. We're not Lords. We couldn't have a rights issue. We've not sold life memberships. We're not in a situation that can fund ourselves that way. We rely on a huge amount of goodwill and support from the people in this room and the people watching this AGM today. So, you know, that we've worked very closely with ECB to ensure that we get through this and we get through this well. Obviously, the 100 is here and we are supporting it. We are not seeing quite the impact we thought it could have on the Blast, but we're still very concerned that the game didn't really need a fourth format. And the Blast is tremendously successful, and to reach a new audience, the Blast was doing anyway. So it didn't really need another format to find the mythical unicorn, which is already coming to the Blast. So it's a challenge. We're working with it. The most important thing as the chairman of Surrey is we don't want our brand diluted any more than it already is. Ebony has gone through tremendous challenges trying to make sense of women's cricket and the numerous structures that exist within women's game. That can't happen with the men's game. And the dilution of the Surrey brand cannot and will not happen. So we do have challenges, we have opportunities too, and we will continue to be at the top table leading those debates with other counties as these very material things happen to the domestic game. So it is my pleasure to obviously welcome Martin. Before I do that, obviously I'd like to formally propose our report and accounts, and now it's an opportunity for Martin to speak to the report and accounts specifically. Martin Eden, our Honorary Treasurer. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. I'll give you a brief overview of last year's results. That's the results to the year, financial year ended 31st January 2021. A little bit on our financial position and a few thoughts on the outlook for the current year. Our results for last year are not a pretty sight. Our revenue fell from 45 million, a record in 2019-20, to just 13.7 million. And what was a record profit the previous year of 6.3 million turned into a loss of 1.2 million. We had no revenue from people watching cricket and very little revenue from our conference and events business. In simple terms, this great asset, the Oval, was not able to generate any income. So you might well ask how we managed to get 13.7 million turnover in that environment. Well, our international ticket sales are insured, so we received about £5 million for that. We had about 4 million of income from the ECB, and most importantly, we had £2 million of membership income. And your patience and understanding, your loyalty and your support is absolutely vital as ever, but especially in these times, and I thank you for that. It is difficult to be anything other than disappointed with a loss, but it could have been considerably worse. We did have a bit more income from the ECB than we had forecast, partly some additional distributions, but also because we had a large number of Surrey players selected for England. And we reduced some costs. We had some government support, we had a bit of furlough, we had a business rates holiday. Very significantly, Andrew, our finance director, secured a very substantial business rates rebate relating to previous years by working hard, appealing against the original rates valuation. And so well done, Andrew, and the timing was excellent. In the circumstances, our executive team has done an outstanding job limiting the financial impact of the pandemic. And in our club, that has to be a balance. We sadly have had some redundancies, as you've heard, but our leadership's done everything it can to keep those to a minimum and also to maintain our critical infrastructure so that we're fit and ready for a return to cricket with crowds and for the reopening of our commercial activities. We estimate that the overall impact of the pandemic on our results last year was £5.6 million in terms of profit, and there will be more in the current year, and I'll come back to that. Inevitably, in these times, the balance sheet takes a bit of a battering. At the balance sheet date, we had £4 million of cash balances, and we showed net current liabilities of £13 million. I just want to say a few words about that. That is not an indicator of a liquidity problem. Firstly, we used our own cash initially to fund our capital expenditure before we drew on our agreed long-term bank funding after the year end. We did that because it's interest cost efficient. And secondly, our current liabilities include deferred income, which is principally advanced ticket sales. It's cash received before the year end, which relate to the following year. As I've mentioned, international ticket sales are insured, so those items, though they're shown as liabilities, don't ever result in a cash outflow. So you can be assured that we pay great attention to our liquidity, especially in times like this, and our cash balances as of today are approximately £6 million. Our debt at the balance sheet date was £23 million. Once we've drawn down on all the funding for the capital expenditure, all our agreed bank funding, long-term bank funding, that debt will be around £36 million. Our balance sheet has been able to withstand this pressure because of the outstanding business performance of the club in the years before the pandemic and because of our approach to building cash reserves. As you heard from Andrew on the video, we have been able to fully service our debt and proceed with the development of One Oval Square and the purchase of the Oval Theatre site. We have retained the confidence of our bankers and other stakeholders through the pandemic, and that's because they trust our business model and our financial record, and those things are very important to us. They also enabled us to finance our investments on very attractive terms and low interest rates. As you can see, the One Oval Square facilities for members will be terrific, and also we've got additional seating capacity. In addition, they also significantly enhance our competitive proposition for our conference and events business as that market returns. So, just looking forward quickly, 2021, we have a budget. It's amended on a fairly regular basis by Andrew as he seeks to adapt to the latest information we have. We face some uncertainties, very significantly around the timing of a return to full crowds in the Oval. Our membership numbers, our ticket sales, our hospitality bookings are all excellent. It's clear there's a huge appetite and demand to watch cricket here. Our financial performance this year will depend on the extent to which we are allowed to meet that demand. It'll also depend on the extent to which we can open our conference events facility facilities at full capacity, and the pace with which that market returns to the levels we think are possible. So we're not out of the woods yet, and there will be some impact this year. It's not at all sensible to try and predict that at this stage, given where we are with the roadmap and so on, but it won't be trivial. Our immediate focus, as it has been for the last year from a financial point of view, is to protect the club and to be ready to adapt to all scenarios. In the medium term, our priorities are to stabilise our finances, return to profitable growth, and rebuild our cash reserves. We've been sustained through this period by the strengths of the club, the loyalty and support of our members, the skills of our leadership team, and the dedication of our people, and I would like to recognise all those things. In particular, I'd like to acknowledge Richard Gould's contribution to this. He's been a brilliant leader for a decade in great times, which he very significantly influenced, but also in tough times this year. We're very fortunate to have had him. We're very fortunate also to have had a CEO who's confident enough to build strong people around him and build a team with strength in depth. And because of that, I'm very confident with Charlie at the helm, we will continue to do a great job here at the Oval. And on that basis, I'm very happy to second the annual report and accounts. Thank you.
So now is the opportunity to ask questions both in the room and virtually on Zoom. We will moderate the questions online. Richard will pick those up via the chat function. There will be people wandering around. Hopefully we've got 2 microphones. And I will take questions from the room first and alternate online. First question in the middle, sir. If you could state your name clearly and then your question, if you wait for the microphone. Thank you.
Okay. David Neil-Smith. I entirely agree with the statement made, the concern about Surrey players going to the IPL and not being available for Surrey. And also looking at the fixture list drawn up presumably by the ECB, I must express that I am pretty horrified that the preparation for the test series against India, where we lost badly in India, there is no first-class cricket, no county championship cricket for 3 weeks, I understand, before the test series, and no first-class cricket until the 30th of August, I think it is. So for players, Surrey players, who sort of want to get in form in first-class cricket to do their best for England, they don't have much, they have no opportunity, do they, in the weeks just before the test series, nor to break into the test team in August.
Sure. Well,
it's just not there.
Thank you. Well, unfortunately, we don't get to write the fixture list. I mean, I'd probably hand a response to Stewie on that one. I'm sure Alec might have something to say.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. Yeah, really good question, and I think we all share your frustrations. The IPL is here to stay. So those of the members, supporters who say, why do we allow players to go to the IPL? If you don't let them go, they will leave the county and go to another county that will let them go. They're just the facts. The money those boys can now earn dwarfs what we can pay them. So that's where we are, and you'll see that all around the world. Some people are even giving up international cricket to put the IPL first, which, you know, to me is wrong, but that's what we have currently. As regards to the itinerary, it's the 4th competition that has created this issue, the 100. We will lose potentially 14 players to the 100 while a 50-over competition is going on. So our chances of winning the 50-over competition becomes that much harder. Regards to the championship, I'm calling it a conference this year. I'll probably upset a few people potentially. I want to see the return of 2 divisions cricket. You know, I just believe that is the right way. That is what we signed up for. Last year's Bob Willis, so we could get cricket on. This year is a conference because of the COVID situation. I hope and trust that the ECB will revert to 2 divisions next year, where we'll have 10 in the first, 8 in the second, and use the positions finished in 2019 for those 2 divisions which were stated at the time and again before this competition started this season. The itineraries, long-winded way of answering your question, the itineraries are just changing. It's the way the modern game is now played, whether we agree with it or not. Not to have had any first-class cricket in India before the first Test match didn't give us too big a chance of succeeding. We rested players, we rotated players. To me, you shouldn't be rested from England. I get the itineraries are tough. And as regards to your point about first-class cricket going into the India Test series, with the central contracts, England basically have a squad. We've just seen a squad announced today. You add in those guys that went to the IPL. That's really what England are working from, a group of around 20 players, to then pick a squad of 16 or whatever it may be come India. So it is tough to get into the setup. The one thing, once you're in the setup, it's harder to get out of it. So it's a bit of a swings and round. It's not ideal because everyone would like to have played at least 2 red ball games leading into a Test series. The modern game, the modern itineraries, all the cricket that is being played makes it very, very difficult. So I share your frustrations. I've tried to share some of the reasons why.
Okay. Thank you, Stewie. Next question. Gentleman here at the front, and then I'll come to you. You just state your name. Thank you.
Yeah, question from Mark Percy about the excellent online coverage, which I don't think you probably gave maximum credit to in the annual reports, but it's really come a long way since the early days of the fixed cameras. My question is, how much does it cost to provide? And in a sense, I ask the question because I wonder if it actually erodes the value of membership because it's free for non-members. Do you regard it as a recruitment tool or a loss leader? And will it always be free, do you think?
No, I'll start with the question and then hand over to Richard. I think what we've aimed to do to make it free to air, so it's not behind a paywall, is to promote county cricket. We've seen our membership increase over the last year, and I think the reason that's increased when there's been no cricket is last year's coverage was fantastic. We've seen no decline in membership, nothing to suggest that by providing that free-to-air to non-members has had any issue. You'd like to find other ways of adding membership value, but the reality is anything we can do to improve reach and exposure, similar to having cricket free-to-air, you know, anything that sits free-to-air will find more eyeballs, and effectively that's free-to-air, and that's what we hope it will do. I'll ask Richard the question on cost, because it's not insignificant, but it has come down a lot.
Yeah, it costs in the region of £1,000 a day, something like that. Sorry. Thank you, Lady Jane. It costs about £1,000 a day, something like that. So it's not insignificant, but it is significantly cheaper than a full production unit, and that Sky might bring in, for example, which probably costs £40,000 to £50,000 a day. And so, therefore, I think when the game last week at Middlesex broadcast live on Sky was taken from using this streaming system that we're all using, and John Searcy's at the back of the room has been instrumental in driving this through the game, it was kind of a pat on the back for everybody. There are still improvements that we can make. Searcy's would like many more cameramen, but I just told him we've just gone through a pandemic, so we need to watch our costs to an extent. And the numbers we're getting are significant. In terms of should it be just for members or just for or for everybody, we thought we should make this for everybody, because at the moment what we want to demonstrate to the ECB and elsewhere is the popularity of county cricket, and by making it available to as many people as possible, that's sending its own messages.
Do you want to take a question from Zoom?
Yes, Mark Lawson would like Ebony to understand the connection between ACE and the Sir Tom Moore Foundation.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, thank you. ECB and the Sir Captain Tom Moore Legacy Trust the weekend before, they decided to do a fundraiser, which was part of a bigger, wider thing that was happening across the community. And ECB felt the ACE programme really fitted quite nicely. So I don't know if anybody saw, but it was basically every 100 that was scored, whether in the county professional game or all the way through the recreational game, £100 would be donated. And they looked at the charities that were available. There's plenty of really good charities out there, like Chance to Shine, Lord's Taverners. But they decided that the ACE programme, just because of the new nature of what we're trying to do, was a really good one. So something we're really proud of, because his legacy continues to live on. And I think it's something that what it's going to actually allow us to do is go to more areas. So as we talked about expansion now into a new city, some of that money will be able to support that. So they felt it was a really good opportunity to support a new programme.
Great. And back into the room. Question at the front here. Thank you.
Hi, Julian Davis. I've been a bit disappointed with the cricketing results, both this season and last season. I understand that there are problems as far as test players are concerned, although at the beginning of this season we've had the full hand of players, everybody available. What are the targets for the cricketing side this year, both for the best achievement and what would be regarded as unacceptable?
Alec, would you like to pick that up? Yeah, our challenge, sir, is to be competitive. You know, that's what we're saying, to show progress. Last year, the Bob Willis Trophy competition, we won one game. If you look at that, we lost more people to the England bubble than anyone else. Should we have done better? Yes. Realistically, were we going to win it? I'd suggest no. You may have a different opinion, which you're entitled to, sir. Once we got our players back, we then got to the final of the T20, which I think is you'd see that as a good achievement. We didn't win it. The fact that we're providing players to England, do you see that as a success for the club? Which is a question to you, sir. Well, I'll give you your answer. Do you see it as a success that we've provided players to... Sorry?
I think it's a moot question. There are both sides of the argument. If you look at it from an England side, perhaps. If you look from a Surrey aspect, then no.
Okay. May I ask you now, if as a player, we'll have a discussion. As a player, do you think a player's ambition should be to try and play for England?
Absolutely, indeed. But I'm a Surrey supporter, yes, and I want to see the club doing as well as possible. I understand.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say to you, sir, is while players want to play for England, I want them to play for England. When I came into this role, part of my remit was to try and make Surrey successful. Trying to win trophies. We've only won the one, but we've got the finals, etc. Try to win trophies, try to bring players through our academy system and youth system, which we hadn't done, and also to provide players to England, which we hadn't done for a long time. So if we look at two of those three, we're bringing players through our youth system. I see that as success. You may differ. We're providing players for England. I see that as success. You may differ. We've only won the county championship. We've got the T20 finals, we've got the semi-finals, we've got the quarter-finals. So there is progress there, in my opinion. You have your own opinion, which you're entitled to. This year, so last year, as I say, Bob Willis, we only won one game, probably should have won two. We should have beaten Kent, beat Sussex, should have drawn against Hampshire and, forget now, Middlesex, and we got fairly beaten by Essex. This year we've lost two games poorly, which we shouldn't have done. We played fantastically well against Hampshire. We had a draw against Leicester here on a pitch, and I haven't seen you play, sir, but I'd accept you may have even scored 25 runs on that pitch. It was that flat. I haven't seen you bat. And then we've had two games rain interrupted. So to say we've been poor or not successful this year, I accept we've lost two games, have two games washed out, and a flat pitch. So it may be a little bit early to judge us this year, I'd suggest, but very happy to have the conversation towards the end of the year. Okay, well, sorry, sir, we need to move on now. Okay, if we can just go online. I'm conscious there's a lot of questions that need to be asked.
Yeah, thank you. From Susan Cripps, one for Charlie, and it's with regards to COVID testing. Before attending the test match this year, will I be required to take a COVID test, or is it too early to say?
It is, excuse me, it is a bit too early to say at the moment. That's constantly under review with the government, and we're obviously talking to the ECB, who are in discussions with them constantly. In an ideal world, the answer to that would be no. But if that's what helps us to have a full Kier Oval for the test match, then that may well be the way forward.
Great. I'm conscious there's lots of questions, so if you just keep your question as brief as possible, and we'll keep our answer as brief too. So a few in the middle here. Thank you.
Chris Coke, I just wanted to ask, who is responsible for the duty of care of players when they are overseas? I think the situation regarding the IPL is an indication. Does Surrey have any influence whatsoever on their own players?
No, Richard. Well, let Richard pick them up.
Yeah, the IPL did a good job in getting the players back really quickly. As soon as the competition had been cancelled, I was on the phone to ECB, Tom Harrison, I know Alec was also, inquiring as to whether or not we could help. We've got some contacts in India that thought they could get them back on a military plane if required, but I think that would have been a bit noisy and a bit cold, and I think they preferred a private jet if available. So no, responsibility was taken by the IPL. Responsibility is also with the individuals, though to an extent, I think, as you've seen with the Australian players who have fared slightly worse in trying to get back home. But they're part of our family, they're part of our club, and we would make every effort to make sure they got looked after.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a formal duty of care, but the fact is there's a very big informal duty of care, and they're our boys, and we will always be looking out for them wherever they are. Other questions from the middle here? Question just behind. Joe?
It's Joe Ryan. I'm Surrey member for a long, long time. We've lost, Richard, 3 of our lovely players, and we've also lost the only man who was ever our treasurer, our president, and our chairman. Are we going to have some kind of memorial service on the pitch, or hopefully on the pitch, sometime in the next couple of months to say goodbye to all of them?
Well, we've spoken about this, Joe. We very, very much hope so, but every time we try to plan something, then news breaks of the current variant and obviously people's caution. I think there's absolutely plans with our chaplain, Steve, to do something at St Mark's, but we can only really do that when we have some certainty and a period of certainty to be able to plan something, but it's our absolute intention to do so. Thank you. Question here.
Ken Wright, a question probably for Alex, best to answer this. To the best of my knowledge, this is the only cricket ground in the London Borough of Lambeth. Now, a few years ago, I believe the club took an interest in developing something down at Camberwell New Road in that park there. Is that facility still in existence?
Well, Kennington Park, really.
Yeah, that's the Kennington Park extension, which the Cricket Foundation helped fund, put new nets in about 3 or 4 years ago, and also a new pitch has gone in there. It's not something that we're looking to use for elite level, but it's used by last man stands in a variety of other areas. Is there anything?
Nothing to add too much, but I think Chevy, who's walked in the room, is a face you should keep an eye on. He's at the back. He's director of programs of ACE, has been mobilising a lot of these non-turf pitches around the South London area, and so I'm sure he has plans to make the most of that and really leverage through the club. So keep an eye on him. If you've got questions on Kennington, I'm sure he'll help you out.
Great. Further question from here, and then we're moving to the middle.
Hi, David Wright. Got a question on ticketing. We've had to have, as members, we've had to apply for tickets for upcoming games for COVID reasons. The system doesn't allow you, although it works very well, it doesn't allow you to select a seat. So the system is doing it for you, and it allocates seats from the front. So the early birds, the ones of us who are sitting there waiting for 9 o'clock to happen and logged on quickly, are getting the least advantageous seats. Is there anything that can be done to improve?
Maybe one for Charlie.
Yes, and this is one of the challenges we have with the current system. and one of the reasons, again, that we're kind of looking to change to SecTix. Some of the capabilities that the SecTix platform will bring in will transform the way that you're able to interact in buying tickets, seeing facilities that might be involved with your tickets. That it's a platform that will help us understand who our ticket purchasers are much more and provide a much higher service. So we would hope that that will certainly be fixed for next year, should it be needed. But I'm afraid we're sort of stuck with the Ticketmaster system at the moment.
Okay. Next question. Some at the back here.
Richard Allison. A couple of points on the accounts. One, I think in previous years there's been a segment.
Sorry, can you move the microphone?
Sorry. There's been a split between conference and cricket. I might be wrong, but there isn't this year. But the conferences are included in this, are they?
Yes, they are. The format is exactly as we've had probably for about the last 6 years now.
Right. I just seem to remember there's a split, but maybe not. And also note 19 about related party transactions. There's some big numbers there. Could you sort of tell me why it's structured like that and there's these debts going between?
Yeah, the related party transactions largely is because we have the joint venture with Compass. And obviously we buy the majority of our food and beverage from Compass. And so naturally that leads to fairly large numbers. Now it can just depending in terms of some of the outstanding balances or whatever, there's no inherent debts there being hidden away. It's just literally what happens at the year end and whether I've put the cheque in the post to them or not. It's a simple, small timing thing.
So all the new development is actually within the club. They're not companies that...
Sorry, I couldn't catch that.
Can't hear.
The new development is within the cricket club. They're nothing to do with ring fencing and all the new projects.
No. The new development is completely sits within Kennington Oval Limited, which is 100% owned by the club. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Question. We'll take two more from the room, and then we'll do two more from Zoom. Question here.
Yes. Good evening, Christopher Watts. I'd just like to go back to a theme I mentioned at AGM 2 years ago. Surrey is the most profitable, most commercially astute county in the country. Why can't you influence the ECB more to bring about a situation that, that Surrey purports to suggest? Now, to the club's eternal credit, you've always said that the county championship is the preeminent tournament of the country. I fail to see why we have to have these blocks where, as has been said earlier, there are whole chasms where there's no 4-day cricket. In fact, I've never understood why a round of the county championship couldn't involve a T20 game, say on a Thursday, then a rest day, followed by a 4-day game between the same opponents. I've never understood why that didn't happen, and yet we've got Alex Stewart, one of the pantheons of the game, in his media role, saying it's not a good thing for developing young England cricketers to have 4-day cricket concentrated into April and September.
Okay, thank you. We can add pantheon to the list of things the way we describe Stewie now. He's a lot of things. He's now a pantheon. It's a good question. The reality is, and Stewie has touched on this, before the 100, the schedule was in crisis. The 100 has now just pushed it over the edge. The reality is we are the leading proponents of red ball cricket. The gold standard is to win the county championship. It's everything. The way the schedule plays out, if you look at the block now, how can a spinner make any difference before June or July? And yet we're going to see most of the 4-day cricket played out before we have a hot summer's day. The reality is we are one of 18. We don't have a special vote. We don't have a mandate above any others. We voted against an independent board. I resigned over an independent board, and as a result, we now have an independent board that is not close enough to the game to influence that change. So unfortunately, the governance doesn't lend itself to ensure that we have a structure that makes any sense. So I have huge sympathy. I agree with everything you've said, but unfortunately, our ability to change things, despite our profits and commercial success, is very limited.
Declare UDI, and the other counties will come with you.
But unfortunately, as our former treasurer used to say, we have to play against somebody. So I wish we could. Moving on to a Zoom question, then we come back into the room.
Yeah, Dick and Keith wanted to ensure that with the new website it worked on an iPad. Looking at Emily there, she's nodding, so that's good. Dick and Keith, the website will work on iPad. Stuart Solomon wanted to talk with regards to COVID again, with regards to what happens on Thursday and Friday. We are open on Thursday. No tests are required. There is no passport system. We just ask that when you come on site, you socially distance. You'll be asked to wear a mask when you're wandering around the ground until you get into your seat. But there are no specific other measures other than that. We are then waiting to see what happens after the 21st and whether the government is bringing in any kind of accreditation scheme. One interesting stat which we have been putting into government is that many of our members have already been vaccinated twice. And indeed, when we get to the ODI, when we looked at the ODI on the 1st of July, and we mapped that against our database, 85% of spectators have already been vaccinated or will already have been vaccinated. So we think there is a good... That sounded a bit like Boris. We think there is a good reason to get all cricket supporters back into the club as soon as possible.
Right, thank you. So, two final questions from the room. We'll go to Zoom and then we'll move on. Question at the back there, sir.
Thank you. Hugh Dickinson here. Quite frankly, increasing the membership in a pandemic is remarkable, so congratulations on that. But is there any plan to cap the total membership? Because I understand 13,900 is a big old number, and I think there are concerns about quite how many you can get in here. Also, just on the back of that previous question, would there be any plan at the club to introduce vaccine passports for those of us who are lucky enough to be unvaccinated so far?
Okay, well, look, there's a very good question. We are very aware that within our rules we do have a cap on membership. This is a lovely problem to have, but there probably will be a rule change that we are already looking at to increase the scale of our membership, because with the facilities we've got here now, and adding 2,500 extra seats, the hope is we can. So the intention will be to lift that cap to enable us to increase our membership. And if we can increase our membership when you can't even come and watch a game, who knows what you can when you're able to. I think with regards to the vaccine passport, we're under the control of government guidelines, Public Health England, so we would be unable to introduce our own independent method of passport control. All I would say, if you are living in the area and you walk past St Mark's Church Hall and the club chaplain might be outside, grab him, because we have a very successful vaccination centre behind here that's on a mission to jab 1,800 people a day, and he's been very generous with his support to the locality to try and get that very important jab. Any further questions to the room before we move to Zoom? I want to ensure everybody has the opportunity to speak. Thank you. So any final questions on Zoom?
Alan Heim wanted to know our comment with regards to the county championship and the bookending of the season, which I think we've covered. And Mark Lawson says, will there be extra tokens on my card due to the recent behind closed doors fixtures? Because we did have a bit of a, we put a guarantee there that we would do a refund scheme if people weren't able to come into games. Charlie, when are we making those decisions on those quantities?
Sorry, this is for the bar money.
Yeah, this is for games that people haven't been able to come to. So
yes, this we'll take a similar view as to last year, in that we would like to get to the end of the season before we decide what that is, because the situation is so fast moving with COVID. We know we don't want to be offering a refund for games and then moving on and then realising that there are more games that are affected later in the season. Our belief is that we will do it on a pro rata game basis at the end of the season.
For those of you who haven't picked up on it, I've quite enjoyed the current chief exec bowling the odd short one to the interim chief exec, but I think we'll agree he hasn't nicked one yet, so he's having a good net for the future. All I would say as well, no one seems to have wasted lockdown, because I think that's the best quality and quantity of questions we've had for a long time. Some very good questions. Obviously, time is limited, but if there are any questions you've got at the end, please grab us and we'll make every effort to answer those. So now to formally propose our adoption of our annual accounts. I proposed them, Martin has seconded them. I would now formally ask for votes for our annual reporting accounts. Those for? Thank you. Any against? Thank you. Unanimous. I can confirm the annual report and accounts have been adopted. So, moving on to item 3, we have the election of our president, our honorary deputy president, and HLVPs. So, it is my absolute honour to start with item 3, with the election of the Surrey president. The General Committee have formally nominated David Pakeman for election as president in 2021. He is standing unopposed. I therefore declare him elected. Congratulations, David, if you'd like to say.
Thank you, Richard, very much indeed. A special personal welcome to you all from me here in One Oval Square. The facility is fantastic. It is designed for you. It will become the best members' facility, I'm sure, in sport, let alone cricket. As the 54th president of the club in 176 years, I am truly honoured to take up the role, and I thank the committee and you, the members, for your endorsement. Susanna and I pledge we will represent the club to the highest standards and in the manner of the 53 presidents who have gone before me. To that end, there is one man who is standing down today, and he's no better example than Ken Schofield, who has done an outstanding job on the international and domestic arena over the last 2 and difficult times years. It has been a real pleasure, Ken, to be your wingman at this period. We have had some great fun on the way too. The saying goes, look behind a great man and you will find a great woman. That saying is doubly proven with Evelyn Schofield. Evelyn, you have been wonderful. Your support to Ken has been evident to all, and you've earned the respect and love of so many. Would you pop up just a moment, Evelyn? It is also my genuinely real pleasure to welcome Trish Garrard as my deputy for 2 years. Trish is known to many of you. Her qualities stand out in terms of the membership relations she's built over the years, and I really look forward to sharing those 2 years with you. Surrey is a genuine members' club. It is designed and built for you. Both on and off the park, we think about members all the time. That is evidence, it's already been said, by the 13.9 thousand members that have stayed solid in these very difficult times. For your confidence in the future, as your new president, I thank you. My thanks go to the full management team here at the Oval, not just the chairman and the CEO, but everyone involved in keeping the club very much alive and match ready for when things return to normality. I have been very fortunate to work for 20 years with some of them and judge them to be one of the best, not just in cricket, but the broad sporting and commercial arena. They have built something very, very special here. Support for all, a family linked to business success and sporting leadership. As a result, Surrey is respected by friends and foes alike. My thanks to you all, management team. We are very, very lucky to have you on our side. The man at the top of it, Richard Gould, is joining us to the club that's 19th in the Championship. I'm sure he's going to make sure that won't last for very much longer. Richard has been an outstanding Chief Executive, and we are fortunate to have had his drive, insight, and leadership for the last 10 years. Just over 10 years ago, Richard Thompson, Robert Elliott, and I had breakfast for the candidate to join the club as CEO. That man was Richard Gould. At the time, I thought, good Lord, this man's going to shake the place up a bit. And my goodness, he has. You have done an outstanding job. Richard, you will be sorely missed, but leave a truly great legacy. My best wishes to you, Bex, and the girls in the Southwest. I really mean that. I was hoping to be standing here on the back of 4 to 5 straight wins so that I could take full credit, change the president and everything works. That obviously isn't the case. But what I can do is affirm my personal belief in the new Pantheon and Vikram and the team. They are two of the finest coaches in the country and will win through very soon, I'm sure, starting with Middlesex on Thursday. We have an outstanding academy, cricketers who represent England, the IPL, and now the 100. That is what Surrey really do, and I know it's been discussed in full. The downside is that we blood young people and hope they come on. It will happen, and I really look forward to the next 2 years. Thank you all again. My thanks for your support. I look forward to watching cricket with you all over the next 2 years. And my own ambition is to raise a bit of silverware in the next 2 years as well. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, David. DP, Deputy President, now you're President. We might have to do something with a D. So congratulations, though. David let it slip, obviously you're aware who the committee have nominated as our Deputy President. And that's someone very much known to you all. And it's my pleasure and honour to say, standing unopposed, Trish Garrard has been nominated and elected as Deputy President of Surrey County Cricket Club. And I've made her cry again. I mean, it's... and moving on to our Treasurer as well, the General Committee have nominated the brilliant Martin Eden for re-election as Honorary Treasurer. He is standing unopposed. I formally declare him elected. Thank you, Martin. The Club Honours Committee met in January of this year and came to a very easy and unanimous agreement for the election of an Honorary Life Vice President, something that we do rarely to only the very greatest servants of this club. And it's my honour that our former President, Ken Schofield, CBE, is elected as Honorary Life Vice President of Surrey County Cricket Club. Ken. And I obviously would like to offer my thanks for everything you have done for the club for the last 4 years, but the 30 years that preceded that, Ken. And you keep saying that you're moving up to the Lords. You're going nowhere, Ken. You're a real asset to this club, and we're lucky to have you. Thank you, Ken. So moving to item 4 of the agenda, the appointment of auditors. I would like to propose that Deloitte continue as their club auditors for another year. I would like a proposer for Deloitte as the club auditors to serve for another year. Thank you, sir. And a seconder. Thank you, Lizzie. And I'd like a show of hands for all members to vote for Deloitte to serve for another year. Thank you. Any against? Great, thank you. So item 4 was General Committee elections. There was as you well know, there was a slight screw-up with regards to the papers going out. That was rectified. We had 9 candidates standing for 4 positions. It was a very competitive election. And before I announce the outcome of the general election, I'd like to pay tribute to those 4 members who are standing down this year, having served for the last 4 years, those being Emma Lewandon, Pat Pocock, Trish Garrard, and Colin Hunt. Thank you so much for your commitment during that period. So, with the 9 nominations that we had, it is my honour to say that those that were elected were Alex Tudor with 1,302 votes, Ross Trinick with 1,050, Matt T, 608 votes, and Jerry Hudson, 529 votes. Congratulations to Ross, Alex, Matt, and Jerry. Welcome. And I think it's a sign of a very healthy club where we have a number of people that want to stand on the committee that have so much to offer, particularly when 3 of those members haven't served before, to ensure that we get fresh blood and fresh thinking into the top table of what we do. The composition of the committee as well, just so you're aware of it, that's available within our annual reports you're aware of. We have 1 position that's been co-opted because obviously a good opportunity of coming onto the General Committee, you might get a job as well. And young Miss Garrard is now part of our club and has to stand down as a member of the committee and is now working in the membership office. Congratulations for doing that. So honorary life members, which is item 6, there are 3 recommendations that the General Committee have approved, and those being, firstly, Lord Tony Grabiner, QC. Tony has been a member of the Surrey Management Board since 2011, for 10 years, of which he stands down this year. When the board was first established, he came into the club at a fairly challenging time. His unrivaled legal experience provided great support for Richard, myself and the board generally on numerous occasions. The Club Honours Committee found it a very easy recommendation to honour Tony Grabiner with an honorary life membership. Our second recommendation that also got unanimously voted for was Christine Watmore. She was a former captain of Surrey Women, captain from the 1980s to 85. She played 13 tests and 28 ODIs for England Women and was a World Cup winner in 1973. I think that's a good example that it's never too late to honour somebody that probably should have been honoured before. And Christine Watmore will be awarded an honorary life membership. And Mike Reeve, Mike is known to many of you and was actually elected last year as an honorary life member, but we failed to mention that. And as much as Mike has already been a member for many years, an honorary life member for the last year, I think it was important for this meeting to ensure we pay credit to Mike's contribution for a dining club, which is the envy of every county. And I know Mike can't wait to host that first event, not socially distanced, on Friday. Thank you for your contribution, Mike, and being one of our 3 special honorary life members. Congratulations to all 3. So that brings our meeting to a close. There will be other opportunities where I certainly will be paying very special tribute to my friend and my colleague, Richard Gould. I think the one person I will pay credit to is Mrs. Gould, Bex Gould. It's the last opportunity I will be able to do this, and I quite like embarrassing Bex. But what I will say to Bex, thank you for lending us your man for the last 10 years. It's been a tough commute from Somerset to London. The commute's going to be a bit easier from Somerset to Bristol. I slightly worry you're going to see more of him now, which I hope won't be too much of a challenge. But you're a huge friend to the club. You've been an asset to Richard and an asset to Surrey. Thank you. Bex, thank you. And that formally brings our meeting to an end. Enjoy the rest of the season. I look forward to having a drink with you at the bar. Thank you very much indeed.